good, YouTube? I'm back with another video, or Facebook, or TikTok, wherever you watching this on. But right now we're watching some Nick Frances. I'm putting it up in the household over here. You know, I had to eat some food, some dinner last night, some dinner. We watching some Nick Fuentes talking about the next phase in the Iran war. Let's see what's going on though.
Israelis, they really believe that no cost is too high to get what they want here, which is to finish off Iran, and then they could say it was all worth it. The Israelis want the fighting to go on indefinitely because they have these more ambitious objectives in the war. And so they don't want us to wrap it up. They don't want us to stop and leave. They want us to fight to the finish until Iran is destroyed.
That's how I feel. That's why I feel like when it came out, when they announced like, oh, Iran, they want to assassinate Trump. Oh, big news. Duh, they've been wanting to kill Trump. They always say they want to kill Trump. It's not new. It's not new news. Even before the war started, they said that. When we killed their leader, they said that. When we killed a lot of their leaders, they said that. The only difference is right now is that they're trying to make it big news to the public. Like, oh, Iran want to kill Trump. Iran want to kill the United States president, to give reason on why Trump being so damn aggressive right now. If you notice, we're bombing more than we ever bombed them. We're just bombing now. And it seems like Israel, it put a Trump in chokehold of like, bro, you either finish this war and you knock them off the map, or we're going to assassinate you. I feel like that's where they at. Because Trump already had like, I think 2 to 3 assassination attempts already on him. So it's like, bro, I feel like Israel has him in a chokehold. I don't feel like it's Iran. Iran don't have the power to assassinate the president. They don't have the power or the intelligence. They don't have it. Like, they can't get to him. They can't. The only ones who can get to him is Israel. They can get to him easily.
We're there. I mean, we're already there. We're trapped. It's not good.
The United States is in a new phase of the war with Iran, with continuous bombing exchanges.
And hold on, y'all. Make sure y'all roll up, too. Make sure you roll up.
For the last 10 days or so, new soldiers in body bags. But there is something about this phase of the war that is different, and Nick Fuentes is breaking that down in this clip because Israel is reluctant to participate in this stage of the war. They haven't been involved in these.
Yeah, they want to merge militaries. They have the United States be way more aggressive. It's different.
Right. So what does that mean? Well, Nick explains what he thinks the angle is that Trump has and the reasons why Netanyahu is essentially sitting this one out. I think there's some interesting things to glean from this and how this might affect Trump and U.S. politics as well, so let's break it down. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hype it if you can.
Today, Trump announced that we will be bombing Pickaxe Mountain. Will that actually happen? Who knows? He said it's going to happen. Technically, he announced it. Who knows if that is really a serious threat or if it's like the other threats that don't ever happen. And the other development is that the state of Israel is deliberately recusing themselves from the latest round of fighting. We had been bombing Iran for 11 consecutive days. We've been hitting them really hard. They've been hitting us really hard. Americans are dying. We're now up to 18 casualties. I think we're up 5 more in just the past 2 weeks. And in case you haven't noticed, Israel is not involved in the fighting. They're not hitting Iran. They're not getting hit, and they're doing it intentionally. They're not getting back in the conflict, and I think I know why that is. Because the Israelis don't want any restrained, contained, limited attacks on Iran. The Israelis want to destroy Iran. They want to nuke Iran. They want to kill all the Iranian leadership. They want to bomb all the energy infrastructure. The Israelis were bombing the oil and gas fields during the war, during Roaring Lion in 2026. The Israelis were bombing the gas fields in southern Pars. The Israelis were bombing the oil fields. The Israelis killed the supreme leader. They knocked out half of the military and civilian leadership of the country. The Israelis, it's not that they're not interested in a conflict with Iran. They're not interested in a contained conflict with Iran with limited objectives. What is the Trump administration trying to do? The administration is trying to compel Iran to make a deal. Israel doesn't want a deal. as we've talked about, Israel actually does not want a deal because a deal would imply that Iran will normalize its relations with its neighbors, become interdependent economically with its neighbors, will become integrated in the community of nations. And what that means fundamentally is that Iran is never going away.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that, especially when it comes to the Israelis and their aims. They do want this to be a prolonged war that results in the destabilization of Iran or a regime change, but they don't really care about what comes next. They just hope that the current power represented by the Iranian regime is destroyed. But the United States has separate motives that doesn't really care as much about regime change, even though that was a stated war goal of Trump. He said that that was an original aim. He pivoted from that. You see a mass pivoting on a lot of the initial war aims. Now it's to supposedly contain the nuclear threat, but no one's at fault more for risking the ongoing or potential future nuclear threat than Trump himself. He's done everything to incentivize the Iranians actually to fast track a nuke and become a new Kim Jong-il rather than falling prey to a NATO alliance led by the United States against Muammar Gaddafi, who did give up his infantile nuclear weapons program. He died in a particular ghastly way. But what Nick says, it makes sense when it comes to the Israelis, but if the nuclear threat was really the main issue, Trump could get a deal with the Iranians, at least before launching this war. Now, it's an uncertainty with the Iranians not wanting to negotiate, no matter how much Trump says that, but it just shows how outlandish, how idiotic, how retarded this war was to launch, because they could have created a more rigid JCPOA, fix the sunsets that were in it, bring them to the table rather than colluding with Netanyahu behind the scenes dishonorably in the middle of negotiations to bomb the Iranians. That would have been more ideal, certainly. The next world war won't start with soldiers, and in fact, it's already starting with code. When the world's militaries decide AI is a weapon worth betting everything on, that tells you something about its raw power. But instead of allowing the tech giants to monopolize it against your interests, you can use it to your own advantage and gain leverage over the competition in the job market. So the real question is simple. The most powerful tool of our generation is now out in the open. Are you willing to learn to use it, or just read the headlines about everyone else who did? And the fastest way to start wielding that advantage right now? It's the Claude AI Mastery Workshop, a full deep dive into Claude.
That was a great intro. How you did that? Now I think with the AI situation, man, I think like for sure, whichever country advanced AI and win AI, because they advanced it enough first. And when they get control of AI, they won. They won. You won AI. You won. And you won for the time being. And it's like it become a dangerous game. Also with the whole Iran thing, bro, I just feel like Israel just want them off the map to take control of their country. Israel want to expand. They're trying to take control of the whole Middle East. That's how I'm seeing it. Either you with them or you're not with them. They just attack you. Crazy.
And if Iran is never going away, that's a big problem for Israel, because Iran is a big and powerful country. Huge territory, huge population, huge middle class. They have a lot of technical experts, a lot of intellectuals. They have blueprints for nuclear centrifuges and reactors. And Iran has influence in all the countries in the Middle East with Shiite populations, which is almost all of them. Iraq, Bahrain, Saudi's eastern province, the northwest of Yemen, western coast of Syria. Alawites are arguably a sect or a split off from Shiite Islam. This is deeply problematic for Israel, which seeks to dominate the region. They don't want Iran to make a deal with the United States, and then Iran gets all the sanctions relief and becomes rich and powerful and then dominates the region. They want Iran to be decisively confronted and finally defeated. And so when Smotrich says, we're not interested in this contained conflict with Iran, what he's saying is we want an unlimited conflict with Iran. We want a conflict which is not contained. There's no restraint. There are no limits. And the objective is not increasing our leverage against Iran. It's not calibrating our strikes in such a way that we avoid escalation, but we increase our leverage.
Heavy war. They went heavy war. Boots on ground. Heavy war. Straight up raw war.
And incrementally, we inch closer towards a deal that we can live with so that we can make peace with Iran, so the United States can extricate itself from the region. They're saying we want an unlimited war where the goal is to destroy Iran. So we're just going to indiscriminately bomb them. We're going to kill their leadership. And if they replace that leadership, we'll kill the next round of leadership. And we're going to bomb their oil and gas fields because we don't want them to reconstitute. And we're going to bomb their transportation infrastructure because we want to incite a revolution and we don't want them to be able to suppress it. They want to turn Iran into a failed state. They don't care anymore. We would say we don't want Iran to collapse, because if Iran collapses, then it becomes this power vacuum. If Iran becomes a failed state, this is a very dangerous situation. This spills over and destabilizes the whole region. Destabilizes Iraq, destabilizes Pakistan, Afghanistan. And this is right on the Persian Gulf where all the world's oil is.
Check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded this car. Okay, you ready? All right, 100.
She afforded a car by closing the door? So if I close the door, I can afford a car.
And so this complicates the situation. Israel doesn't care. What's more, on the way out, the Iranian regime might knock out all of our allies in the Gulf. I don't think Israel even cares about that if Iran retaliates against the Gulf, because, then maybe that makes the Gulf more amenable to Israel. So what they're saying specifically, they're almost telling us that they're punishing us. I believe the reason Israel is not getting involved is because, one, it's almost an act of protest. We all know the Israelis did not want the fighting to stop. The Israelis want the fighting to go on indefinitely because they have these more ambitious objectives in the war. And so they don't want us to wrap it up. They don't want us to stop and leave. They want us to fight to the finish until Iran is destroyed. So when we made the ceasefire, they weren't happy.
Yeah, there's something to this for sure, but what I would say to Nick is that Israel can do its own bombing independently of the United States, and in many ways seem to be steering the United States in its policy toward this war in general. They can bomb their own regime targets, still cling to the lofty idea of regime change as if that's going to happen without the United States enacting repercussions against them. I mean, for heaven's sakes, they bombed the diplomatic parties that Trump tried to arrange in Doha for a ceasefire in Gaza and suffered basically no negative ramifications for having done so. They could do the same thing in Iran. Now, it's more of a pipe dream that just a bombing campaign would lead to a regime change, because there's never any documented situation in which that's unfolded throughout all of world history. It always takes an internal mutiny or an uprising or rebellion or boots on the ground to cause a regime change. But Israel can cling to those lofty notions of trying to make that happen through strikes if it wants. So I think there's something to them pouting about this, them not wanting targeted strikes, not wanting strikes that are designed to lead Iran to negotiations, which, by the way, seems foolhardy at this point when you break your MOU, tank it, and sabotage it on behalf of the Israel lobby, which Trump did. But Israel can engage unilaterally and not fear the loss of aid. What U.S. politician sitting there is going to support the loss of aid? Very few, at least in this administration. Maybe in 10 years' time in Congress, you will have more politicians doing that, but not now. The other thing is, regime change was an initial war aim of the United States, of President Trump. He announced that in his initial speech to the public. Yeah, they pivoted away from that, and they know they can't get that at this point. So the dynamics have certainly shifted there. But to the United States, it was initially to do exactly what the Israel lobby always wanted it to do. Always to what the neocon Zionists that supported the clean break strategy wanted them to do. And that's to clean house in Iran. Destabilize the country for Israel's territorial aspirations, not because of an actual threat to the United States, which never existed.
And when we made the MOU, they were even more frustrated. And they were furious that Trump tried to impose the MOU on them in Lebanon as well. You might remember Mark Levin and Randy Fine and Laura Loomer, all the pro-Israel Jews in America became deeply critical of Trump. They said he's making a mistake, he's naive, you can't make a deal with the Iranians, they always break their word. And they all said the same thing, which is don't make a deal, just keep making war. Just bomb them more, escalate more. Now we know, by the way, the MOU in part failed because of Israel. It is because Israel refused to observe a ceasefire in Lebanon, which gave Iran the pretext to violate their part of the deal. They said, if Israel doesn't observe a ceasefire in Lebanon, then the U.S. is in breach of the agreement, and therefore we don't need to uphold it either. They said, we don't need to advance to the next phase, which is nuclear negotiations. We don't need to implement an opening of the Strait of Hormuz because you're in violation of the deal. So Israel hated the deal because they wanted more war. They sabotaged the deal, so the deal failed. And now that the deal failed, they're not going to rejoin the war, almost as an act of protest, as if to say, see, we told you so. You tried to make peace with Iran. We told you that was a bad idea. You tried to impose your peace with Iran on us, and we told you it was a bad idea. Now you can fight Iran by yourselves. You wanted to make peace with them. You wanted to make your bed that way. Now you lie in it. The deal, which, by the way, they sabotaged. A deal to end the war that they started.
Crazy.
Think about it. They're punishing us because the deal failed, in part because they sabotaged it. A deal which we had to extract from Iran because of a war that Israel started and dragged us into.
It's insane. It's insane. Like, I remember I first really looked into this shit. I remember reading Trump and the old dude for Iran, before he died, the dude with the glasses, older guy. I forgot his name. They was about to shake hands for a deal. They were literally about to shake hands for the deal. It all was agreement. Both sides were saying they're in agreement. Israel bombed. Started the whole war. That literally was started the fighting. When they bombed, that started, oh yeah, America, now we're bombing, fuck it, fuck you. And then he got assassinated. But yeah, so.
Yeah, there's a lot to this, but Trump also deserves culpability for sabotaging the MOU. I mean, he has the power, technically, I know it's never exercised, to actually use U.S. leverage to get the Israelis out of Lebanon, to abide by that number one point in the MOU. It's Article 1 in the MOU. Read it. I know that the MOU is totally dissolved at this point, but it was to respect Lebanon's territorial integrity, and that meant that the Israelis had to withdraw. They couldn't annex the territory south of the Litani River for the ambitions of Greater Israel, which Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and Netanyahu boast about, are hell-bent on securing, but that was part of the deal. So Trump was unwilling to do that and ultimately caved to the Israel lobby. Yeah, Netanyahu sabotaged the deal, but so did Trump. Just want to make that clear here.
A war they started because they poisoned the original Iran nuclear deal 10 years ago. Almost.
Hi, I'm Dylan, co-founder of Spot and Tango, and I see your questions every day. Is Unkibble really worth it?
This is their way. So they drag us into a war. It's catastrophic and we lose. It's not that Trump didn't try, it's that he tried and he failed. Israel dragged us into a war which we objectively lost. Trump, cutting his losses, tried to make a deal which they torpedoed and poison-pilled and sabotaged. And now that the deal failed, they're punishing us by not rejoining the war that they started.
Seems like the United States is a masochistic entity too, punishing itself for having launched this war. But yeah, maybe there's something to that. I don't know how ironclad this vision is that Israel's sticking it to the United States. I mean, they certainly are. They're a total parasite on our republic. They're a parasite on our...
It's crazy. Realistically, y'all, it's crazy how, bad of a situation Israel is with the United States people. Not the government, but our people. because a lot of the people who do not like Israel have no say so because we're not in government seats. A lot of us not even near the age or even in college or even in the position to be in them high ranking seats to be like no to Israel. Our generation's not there. Now a lot of the older generation is speaking against them now. But like if Israel don't fix something, man, the younger generation gonna be like, nah.
Treasury, a parasite globally in affecting United States foreign policy in ways that are never good. Certainly so. They do hurt us. They're not a traditional ally. What benefit does the U.S. derive from that? But at the same time, there's a lot of possibility that Israel joins the fray again and begins the bombing. I don't think they're out for good. They want that regime deposed, and especially if Trump walks up the escalatory ladder, actually does ramp up the strikes, put boots on the ground, soldiers in harm's way after about 20 have already died, Israel's going to be all about it. They'll be right back in lockstep with their aims overriding whatever apprehensions they have or any desire they have to stick it to the United States for even entertaining a peace prospect.
And their conditions are pretty clear. I think what they're communicating is, we will rejoin the war when you're ready to fight to the finish. Israel's telling us, when they say they're not interested in a contained conflict, what they're saying is the only way we'll fight is if we can take the gloves off. In other words, Israel is saying if we re-enter the fight, we're going to assassinate the leadership. And so the Israelis, they really believe that no cost is too high to get what they want here, which is to finish off Iran, and then they could say it was all worth it. Everything that is, all these battles, everything that has happened in the past 3 years, it will have all been worth it. Because with Iran out of the picture, then Israel can expand in every direction. In southern Lebanon, in the West Bank, in Gaza. And they can then make peace with Saudi Arabia. Once Palestine's out of the question, they can normalize relations with Saudi Arabia. And Chinese credit will flow into Saudi. Saudi sovereign wealth fund will pour into Israel. And the Saudis and the Emiratis will make peace with Israel. Maybe the Syrians will make peace with Israel. Israel will grow to dominate the region. Maybe then eventually they pivot and they confront Turkey. They do something similar there. But the goal is that Israel will then expand and they will dominate this entire region in the Middle East.
Yeah, that's always been their goal, and Naftali Bennett and Netanyahu have already floated war propaganda targeting Turkey as the next threat to Israel, which no doubt they'll try to get the United States.
I think they said some shit like, yeah, or it was Egypt. It's one of them. They said Turkey or Egypt going to be the next problem for Israel in 15 years. But you're already plotting to attack them and invade, bro. Like why?
To depose on their behalf, not using IDF resources, not using intelligence informational sources by Israel, but getting the United States to bankroll it. That's their next desire, and that is their ambition. And they have it with the support of our criminal government in the United States that just bends to their will in every occasion, and Trump most rigidly so. It's preposterous. I hope it never happens, but you can already see in the messaging, they're already laying the groundwork for a war against Turkey, against Erdogan, and it's insane.
That's the goal, like we've been talking about. So like I said, if you think that's crazy, like they're itching to get back in the fight, but they're telling the administration the terms they're willing to get back in is only if we're pursuing regime change with no limitations. That's a part that they're not saying. We're not interested in a contained conflict. Silently, they're saying we're interested in the uncontained conflict. Let us know when you're ready to let us kill all the leadership. They don't believe in diplomacy. So that's the latest on Iran. We'll see how it plays out this week. Like I said, the Trump administration says we're escalating. We're going to bomb Pickaxe Mountain, more F-16s, more F-35s in the region, more refueling aircraft. They've told the Gulf countries prepare for an escalation next week. The Iranians are already hitting desalination in Kuwait. They're hitting the airports. We're there. I mean, we're already there. We're trapped. It's not good.
Raising Cane's is celebrating National Chicken.
Yeah, but it's not good. We in a deep war. We're in a deep war. It's fucking the economy, fucking a lot of shit up. they can push the United States back a lot, and we have to end this war. Like we getting to the point, we have to end this because we gotta deal with China. We still have to deal with China. That's a Pacific War. And that's going to be a really big fucking war. Because now China dealing with Japan. Japan and China in conflict. And we know Japan cannot hold off China. We know this. So, man, it might be a war with North Korea and South Korea. That might be a big war too. Man, it's a lot. Like I said, bro, like and subscribe to the video. I'm trying to get more into politics. You feel me? I'm trying to understand more. I'm trying to talk to y'all to give you my opinion. I'll just react. I'm very opinionated. But I'm gonna start going to events, going to see me at rallies, see me at shows, see me at some talk places, press conferences. I'm gonna try to get more involved. Stay up, stay high, roll one, like and subscribe.